Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
And you are joining us for the bonus edition of the show. If you were just tuned into the radio show, we wrapped up with Brian a little bit early, but he is back. Now, joining me, of course, here in studio as well is Jim Miller, co-hosting the show. We've got Brian on the line with us from the far, far, far away land of Texas, where he is doing training, corporate training with Volvo. He's a Volvo technician, and he's going to give us some more info that we didn't get to include on the radio show. So if you're tuned into this bonus edition of the show, you're getting kind of a special, inside peek here that the radio listeners don't get. So either that or you should listen on the radio and then come over to the bonus show. So either way, Brian, welcome back onto the show.
I'm back again.
Yes, you are back. So, okay, there are a couple other things you wanted to talk about with Volvo's new electric platform SUV, the EX90. Did I get it right that time?
Yep. You got
it right. I got it right.
EX30 and EX90.
Yep. So you were during the commercial break too, we were discussing some stuff about how it has IR cameras and stuff pointed at the driver. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know a whole lot about every system, just a vague amount, but there is sensors and I think a camera that is looking at the driver and seeing their state of condition.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's to see if you're distracted, or if you're looking a certain way, or if you're looking tired.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, I don't know exactly how deep that goes.
I hypothesized that it's for the drunk driving kill switches that are mandated. That's my theory.
Yeah, but that's not mandated for another 2 years, so I don't know if that's exactly what it is. And I know that they've been experimenting with that stuff for a while.
Mm-hmm. I do know that
with the autonomous driving.
Yeah, with GM Super Cruise and stuff, for example. I think it's Super Cruise, which is GM's flavor of it. It has a similar thing where it can look and figure out where you're looking, and it can tell if you're paying attention.
It's you look suspicious. Time to pull over. You're like, it's my car. I'm not that suspicious looking. You're like, okay.
Facial recognition to drive your car.
Right.
What if you had those silly glasses that have the eyes on them?
Googly eyes.
Yeah.
This isn't my owner. You look suspicious. Time to pull over.
I think the googly. I want to know what happens if googly eyes.
Your car calls the cops on you. You look suspicious.
There's a really sus dude driving me.
Oh my gosh. So what else, Brian? Give us the rest of the details on here.
There's a lot of interesting things. They're a lot different. I think one of the interesting things about the camera situation, the autonomous driving, is the amount of cameras on the car. Each camera, I guess, also has its own washer nozzle.
Okay.
There is literally, if I'm not mistaken, there's four or six pumps. I think two of them are individual, two of them are pairs or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Does it have a little wiper too?
No, just spray nozzles. And because of the amount of cameras that need to be cleaned and with the spray, there is literally two windshield washer tanks connected together, and the car is about 6 gallons worth of windshield washer fluid can be held.
Wow. I think that's something that we're not just getting into the granular details of autonomous driving cars and cars with a lot of cameras on them. Keeping the cameras clean, that's not something I thought a whole lot about. The last week's show, I talked about how there was a string of Teslas that got impounded because the police needed footage off of them because the Teslas essentially witnessed a crime. Right, they saw some violent crime. The car's there. It's a rolling security camera. It's got tons of cameras, forward, back, left, right, interior, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess with Volvo doing the same thing here, whether that's for the autonomous driving or just perhaps a security system for the car, or maybe a little bit of both. I guess we never thought about that. Okay, you got all these cameras.
It's like your car blinking its eyes, wiping its sleep out of its eyeballs. I don't know. It sounds kind of
nerve-wracking
extra.
There's no, making me now realize that would result in an area where if there was a lot of cars, you'd also have not a whole lot of privacy.
No, that's true. No, that's very true. And what was going on with the police, and this was a story out of California last week, and the listeners on the show are familiar with it, but I'm saying it for your sake. But the police were basically, you have like a flash drive in the Tesla that it records the footage locally. It doesn't upload it to Tesla's servers, allegedly. So you can't actually subpoena Tesla for the footage. They'll tell you they don't have access to it. So police are like, hey, we need the footage out of that car. And so they just impound the car and then get a warrant, open the car up, and grab the flash drive. Now, granted, they said that was like the nuclear option if they can't find the owner, but finding the owner, I don't know. How long did they look? I don't know.
Yeah, we're sorry, we have to take your car. It's only been 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. I was using the restroom.
Yeah.
I had to make a deposit at the bank. I'm picking up my kid, and they just take your car.
They're like, your car was a witness in a crime. We'll give it back to you after the trial, which will be like 3 years from now.
That reminds me of the videos of the Teslas getting keyed and the people getting on camera.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that I remember that happened. That's been a thing for several years, but especially
That
when the
goes back to
Teslas
like
came
Model
out.
3s and all that stuff, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was the first one, right?
The
The first main one.
Model S, I think. Then you had the Model 3s, but I think the Model 3s were the ones that had more of the cameras.
Gotcha.
All the Tesla keyboard warriors, which I know watch my show because they comment hilarious things in my comments. They were offended by Jim's dumpster comment the other week.
Oh, nice.
The cyber dumpster?
The cyber dumpster? Yes.
Yes.
The cyber dumpster.
They were very mad at me, I guess.
Your point was still 100% accurate, though. Dumpsters are bullet resistant to smaller calibers, but we don't call them bulletproof.
I don't call a dumpster a Cybertruck, do I? No, I don't. We're okay.
Oh, man. Well, so Brian, with the modern EVs here, you're getting an inside look, and that's why it's really cool having you on the show here because, I mean, obviously we have you on a lot to talk about everything from standalone ECUs to my rusty, crusty project cars to some insider info. I don't think there are any other car radio shows or, well, this is the bonus, a podcast. Now, I don't think there's anyone who's got this inside info. We might be breaking some news here.
Ooh, we're firsties?
We're firsties.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So what else is unusual that you've noticed with these new model Volvo EVs versus some of the other stuff they've had? Like you did say, it's a totally new architecture they have, right?
Yeah. I will say the network stuff, it sounds scary, but actually it's kind of appealing in a way if you think about it, because they can add features to the car without having to reprogram a bunch of modules, because there's only one real computer that's in charge of everything going on, and all of the networks and nodes that are attached to it are simply like extensions of its own self.
Okay.
And I find that really interesting, the way it's done that way.
Yeah, it's kind of taking a page again for the listeners. If you're following along at home, it's taking a page more out of like the cybersecurity networking world than it is the automotive space. That is
actually a concern too. There's actually an onboard vehicle gateway module that
are you saying
the way of.
And are you saying the car basically has probably IP addresses for each of these modules then, right? If it's Ethernet based.
Probably, but there's literally a hardware-based firewall component that is between. It's actually existed in a couple of our cars before this, because our other cars also had onboard Ethernet and FlexRay. So, like our CMAs, our SPAs, I think we would start with the CMAs actually, have a gateway module, which exists for like the OBD2 port, the Wi-Fi, the all wireless connections and stuff in the car, anywhere that you could technically gain access. All that has to go through the gateway module first.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I do not know what a gateway module is.
Think about it like this: if your phone can connect to the car wirelessly, or if it can Bluetooth, or if you can hook a scan tool or a OBD2 thing to it.
So OBD2 is still part of these electric cars?
This thing acts like a bouncer at a club.
Okay, it says you better be able to have the permission, the right idea to do stuff.
It's like making sure that the traffic that's going through this port is actually like not malicious.
Yeah, it's authorized. Yeah. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was invited to the party.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So
okay.
I know what a gateway is. I was on the right track.
I see.
I was mind that if you were to have interject in between the rest of the network, so like you're on the other side of the gateway, that's technically considered unprotected. So there's free roam over there.
It's like going through the back door.
Okay, gotcha.
But that would require some serious physical access to the car. So then the whole idea of like cybersecurity and stuff like that, I think that would be more like how likely is it for someone to break open your car and, put physical hardware in the car to do said thing. It's going to be kind of difficult.
Yeah. And also typically network engineers don't their side gig usually isn't car theft. Usually.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some concerns, having these cars so well connected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure, I forget the name of that movie was, but Sam Esmail produced it. It was, oh my gosh, the scene that captures me is when they're walking off, I think, Rhode Island, and they just see a bunch of Teslas crashed up on the bridge.
Oh gosh, yeah. What was that film? I'm drawing a blank on it.
Is that a Netflix movie?
It was like The End of the World or something, or When the World Ends.
Something like that. Yeah, Netflix, right?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. We know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name. We have the interweb.
When the World Ends, Sam Esmail. There we go.
Okay.
Yep, Sam Esmail.
He's the same producer of Mr. Robot, and I believe Barack Obama actually helped hit that movie.
Okay. It has Kevin Bacon in it. Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, Kevin Bacon. Just Kevin Bacon on it.
It's very footloose of it.
I really do love these electric cars. Don't get me wrong. I think that some of them are really good. Like, especially like our new long range hybrids are fantastic cars because you get 50 miles of battery, and then you get like 400 miles on gas, and combined you get a very fast car filled with features and a really good gas mileage.
Now,
and if you live locally, I mean, if you just do around city driving, that 50 miles can get you around for quite a while, like all week.
Yeah. Now tell me, so are those, enlighten me on this, are those electric drive with a gas generator, or are they still gas driven with a hybrid boost somewhere in the drivetrain?
So those are really weird cars because I think most of the other hybrids, I'm not 100% sure, they're just have an electric motor that boosts. They have no way of charging the main battery. Ours are a little different from what I understand and how I know they work. So you have the gas motor, and the gas motor has a 3-phase motor in between it and the transmission called the ISG.
Okay.
And this ISG can actually produce electricity or produce mechanical torque for the motor.
Okay.
So it goes both ways. So it can charge the battery or provide electrical high voltage power for the other components, assuming the main battery was dead.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you were in pure mode and you had a typical, car, you wouldn't have an AC compressor. You wouldn't have your AC compressor and stuff running because the gas motor wouldn't be working. Well, in this case, this car actually has a high voltage AC compressor, so there is no mechanically driven AC pump, and the same with the heater. The heater is electric.
Power steering too?
Yep, and the power steering. And that way, if the gas motor isn't on, you can still get air conditioning, get heating. So, and the car can just seamlessly switch between gas and electric. Now, the weirder part is that the ICE motor only runs the front wheels, but there's an electric motor in the back to run the rear wheels. And combined, you get an all-wheel drive vehicle.
Okay, so it's kind of a blend of both. So when we've talked about on the show the Edison EVs, for example, the Edison electric trucks, and if you're just listening to the show, if this is your first time hearing it, I had Chase Barber, the founder of Edison Motors, on. I had him on the radio show, and we did like an hour-long bonus show, and it was really insightful talking to him. But the difference with a lot of cars are gas-driven, a lot of hybrids, I should say. So a lot of your hybrids are going to be, a standard car that has some sort of electric boost in the drivetrain somewhere along the line versus the Edison ones, which are more like a heavy duty, like a heavy equipment type of vehicle, which they've used electric drive on things like mining trucks and things like that for years and years, but it's directly electrically driven to the wheels. And the gas engine on board is merely a generator. It's just packing around its own generator. What you're saying, Brian, is it's kind of both. It's not quite a traditional hybrid, but it's also not quite an full electric drive with just a generator, basically.
No, you can go both ways, and it can use both at the same time. Even if the battery's dead, the ISG can provide high voltage energy, 400 volts, to run the rear motor so that the car can have all-wheel drive, or AC.
Or heat.
Heat, obviously. Yeah, all of that.
So what? The heat can be from the electric heater or the engine.
Okay, so that's probably actually pretty good. People get in gas vehicles, and this is probably a plus, I guess, and they get stranded in the middle of a big snowstorm sometimes, the big terrible ones, and they're like suffocating from fumes or die because they're trying to stay warm. That might actually be kind of a good thing because the electric heat. Well,
the plus thing too is if you
gives you time to get dug out.
It instantly has electric heat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so you don't have to wait for it to heat up.
So, okay.
Oh.
So that probably gives plenty of time to be rescued if you're stuck in a terrible snowstorm and be warm and no fumes. And
yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty ingenious. They literally just have it's almost like a tankless water heater. There's just a little module the size of I'd say like a PlayStation 2 that has an in and out, and it's in line with the
Are we talking about like the PlayStation 2, the original one, or the Slim? I need to know.
Like the Slim.
Okay, the Slim.
I'm honestly just visualizing a PlayStation with like toaster coils and just air blowing through.
It is like surprisingly small, and it's actually quite a punch. If I'm not mistaken, it can pull up to like 5,000 watts.
Really? See, by the way, if you're watching on video, which you're missing out if you aren't, because you're missing out on Jim and I's faces. We got this confused, like the stuff is clearly over our pay grade look on our faces right now.
Some college right here, some college.
Wow. Okay. So this is interesting. Okay.
All I got to say is I think our hybrids is where it's going to be at. I think the hybrids are fantastic.
Okay. Oh, that's where I've thought too, you get this debate with EVs. And I feel like my show has talked about EVs a lot lately, and that's just because they've been in the news cycle a lot lately. Yeah. And the fact is that you have, the people, EV's got this problem, and gas cars don't have the torque, instant torque, and XYZ issues. And really, again, when we talk about hybrids, and we talk about these clever hybrid systems, not the more old-fashioned sort of hybrids we're all used to, you really can have your cake and eat it too. You can literally have the best of both worlds.
Suburban, urban, who cares where you're traveling? Yeah.
Yeah. You can have all the torque. You can have none of the range anxiety. You can fill it up immediately.
Fuel everywhere if there's nothing but a gas station on the side of the road.
Yeah.
You can charge it if you need to. You can actually charge. On these ones, you could let that car idle, and you can select charge and let the ISG slowly charge up the full electric battery or the high voltage battery.
Well, that's kind of similar. So one thing, I was earlier this year during the hill.
A good idea to do it though, because it would take a while, and also it's not efficient, obviously, because you're just taking the gas,
right,
back in electricity, and then going to reuse it as, it's kind of a wasteful.
Yeah, but the fact you can do it, there might be a specific use case where you say, hey, that makes sense in this instance. Now, to the note of using cars as generators, when Wesley Kagan was visiting earlier this summer during the hill climb, and he was on this show, and it was a lot of fun having him over, he was driving. His parents live here in Colorado. He now lives in Arizona. He drove up here for a little bit, though. He had to get his Volvo. He had to get some new tires on it. And speaking of Volvos, and his parents lent him their newer F-150, and it's a brand new F-150 hybrid. And he showed it to me. It was actually really cool. It has a generator mode where you can turn it on generator mode if you're at a campsite, and it will generate power. The engine will run. Because it's a hybrid, it can use the engine power to create electricity, and you can plug tools, equipment, lights, and it's a lot more than like the 400-watt inverter in the bed of my Tacoma. I don't remember what the wattage was on it, but it was significant. Like, you could run your home air conditioner off of it and your refrigerator and stuff, you know?
PlayStation 5, flat screen TV, full freezer.
A lot of these EVs now are also offering bidirectional charging. So the new EX90, just like I think some of the other cars are doing, offers bidirectional charging where you could actually not only charge your EV car from your house, but you can also power your house from your car.
Yes, I've heard about that. And especially as more folks do solar house installs and have battery walls and things like that, I can see where that would make a lot of sense, especially in an emergency.
I feel like it'd be good in an emergency, and it's also good for people that live in rural areas, or even, I think, maybe in a situation where you have like a week where there's not a whole lot of solar, and you don't really want to use the grid. I mean, there definitely could be areas where people can save a whole lot of money, not using the power grid.
Use that instead of the nothing at the old cabin or the ice fishing hole.
Yeah. Well, that if you've got a, like that, like maybe you've got a cabin you go to and it doesn't have really any power or anything, that could be useful. And I think that it's an interesting discussion when you talk about being self-sufficient on stuff. I think, people get the wrong idea. Of course, we're car guys. We like our gas cars. We like our manual transmissions. And Jim's case are old, crusty JDM Toyota stuff.
Japanese tetanus.
That got to get that quality JDM rust. But
only the finest.
But that being said, there is some merit if it makes sense for your use case. We've talked about this on the show where, I think the mandates are ridiculous. I don't think the government should come in.
What works for you.
Yeah. But what actually works for a lot of folks who maybe wouldn't be traditional EV buyers, the sort of folks who are, I want to be self-sufficient. I want to be off-grid. The sort of folks who like to, have
their sovereignty, their individuality, their own authority.
And those are typically the people who do not want EVs. There is some merit, especially if you've got a remote house and you're on solar and you have an EV. I mean, come on, you can generate your own power. You never need to go to the gas station. You're on solar. You could even be off grid. There is some merit to that. I can see a use case where a potential group of people who wouldn't be all that into EVs could find it very useful.
Could be a good homestead.
Yeah, like the homesteading. The homesteading thing is like big on the internet now. There's like a ton of modern homesteaders now.
With your EV.
With your
You're
EV,
homesteading
apparently.
with your EV that charges your cabin on your home. What the? Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, it's
I've
almost sounding good.
The next flex for people is going to be people becoming energy independent by getting more solar, getting electric vehicles, and then building their home or their property in a way where they don't have to rely on the city power grid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see that happening. I see that happening more and more, I think.
Yeah.
Grid who? She sounds hideous. Just like
Which I think is great. I think that's the one thing I like about the electric vehicle platform is that you can't have your own refinery for oil on your property.
I mean, you could.
It
depends.
Take advantage of solar and other forms of electricity generation, and that gives people the advantage of being able to make their own power without having to spend money.
I think we ought to make a really big still like you would use for moonshine. And distill our own ethanol. Don't tell the ATF shows up, hey, there's an illegal still going on here. No, trust me, we're not drinking it. We're putting it in the track car.
Yeah.
No, I've thought about that too. But this is definitely something I think that'd be like really viable.
Yeah.
And it's something I think that's just going to happen.
This is the only thing I like about electric vehicles. I've mentioned it before, but it was the only thing I like about it, that it will power other things.
Yeah, especially once the battery technology gets better and better.
Yeah. I think if we could just find some EVs that actually have...
wrecked EVs are the new generator on your homestead that you bought from Copart that you just parked. And
Jim's already trying to think of how to project car an EV into a homestead. But do it cheap.
I have an opinion about electric cars. I feel like there's a market missing for electric cars.
How so?
Every one on the market right now producing full electric vehicles, if you look, they're all building really like top tier electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're expensive. I mean, even look at Hyundai, and they have their Ioniq Q6s or whatever they are, Ioniq 5s and 6. Those cars make like 600 horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
And they're absolutely loaded with stuff. So are the Teslas. Now so are the Volvos.
Mm-hmm.
And even the other manufacturers like Ford are building ridiculous electric cars that are really expensive, even with the rebates and tax like breaks. But no one is bothering making like a true, just regular run-of-the-mill base model electric car.
The economy version, the eco version for the everyday people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like something that doesn't have all the ridiculous autonomousness. It has the regular sound system you would expect, the same like center stack you would expect in a car, just the regular things, but all electric.
Yeah.
Why is no one doing that?
And that's a great point, because that could be, if you could get a good electric car that was basic, as a point A to point B car, and you could get it under 30 grand MSRP.
That's what I was going to say,
If
20,
you-
30 grand.
If you could get it under the 30 threshold with the $12,000 combined state and federal, some states will be different. Here in Colorado with the federal, it ends up being about $12,000 together.
So Volvo's trying to do that right now with the EX30. Their plan is that the EX30, as a complete base model, nothing extra, will be $30,000.
One wheel pill electric vehicle.
But the problem is, I think they still haven't cut enough corners, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think the cars should be stripped down further. They could. I want to see something like the equivalent of like a '98 Subaru Outback, but it's electric.
Yeah.
No infotainment, 3 knobs for your temp.
Yeah.
Just regular stuff. A button for volume and radio.
Well,
like
for example, an EV.
An analog speedometer again.
Yeah, an EV without all of the tech. The only tech I want is the electric drivetrain.
Yeah.
Just imagine it. It's all battery, all-wheel drive motor, like dual motor, basic stack, no autonomous driving, none of the weird networking stuff, just a
No LiDARs.
electric car.
Hear me out. Manual windows.
Yep.
I actually want
Super
manual.
light.
I want manual windows in something, anything made in 2024. I don't know if there's actually a single car in the market with manual windows.
In Japan, that Toyota pickup, the one that's they wouldn't give us here,
yeah.
that has manual windows in it.
Yep. Okay.
I think that's where you could see a performance like car market for EVs, is because you could have somebody that's either like run-of-the-mill base that someone does things to and just has what it needs there to have a good drivetrain. Or you could have, I don't know, a car cut down on features that's just for the
Could you imagine the
experience.
swaps? Could you imagine the swaps? Old A86 chassis, bam. This one was
700 horsepower, all-wheel drive electric.
base model electric vehicle that's crashed that I bought used for $10,000 and just stuffed it in something really old.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing
I'm
swaps
just
like
really
that, though.
surprised that no one's done that yet. I think it's because all these manufacturers are trying to shoot so high, trying to get people to pay more money. But I think there's a huge market of people that would buy into something even cheaper.
I think you're 100% correct. And I think it is a mistake on the manufacturer's behalf to not have a basic option. And I think tying this back into my discussion with Edison, I know I bring them up a lot, but it was really awesome having them on, and they have some great ideas. Their idea with their diesel retrofit kits was that you take your existing chassis and you have the electric axles, and they give you a different motor for a generator, and you build an EV truck that is an existing chassis. So you could put it in whatever. If you've got a, old F-250 or something, and it doesn't have any of the modern tech, right? But it's got that drivetrain. That to me that would appeal to me greatly. And I don't like a lot of EVs, but it's not so much the EV drivetrain I don't like. Though I don't think a good sports car ever should be an EV still, but it's not the drivetrain itself I have a problem with. It is all of the tech. When I think about my objections to EVs, it's all of the modern tech. It's all of the big brother that's in the cars now, too.
Got to be hooked to the interweb, yada, yada,
Yeah.
this and that, a subscription, some nonsense. But that's the thing, too, though, historically speaking, every great vehicle, every popular vehicle now was technically pretty affordable when it came out.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, It just was. That's what made it good. It made it available to the masses. Everybody could get a hold of it. I mean, come on, Corollas weren't like, they're like, oh, look, it handles great. Look at this little box of rust. It was like, oh, look, it's the secretary's car available for your wife kind of thing originally. Like,
yeah.
all this stuff was economy vehicles just out there available, affordable, cheap for the everyday person working. Just everybody could get a hold of it.
Well, and if I can hijack the conversation here slightly, on that note, you look at the previous couple of decades, if you look at, say, the 70s, 80s and 90s and the cars that the JDM cars that guys go nuts over nowadays. So, obviously the A86s, your Supras, your things like that, but a lot of things you see, like guys at the time could work hard and save up and buy one of these cars new, like a brand new, is somewhat
even like an NSX and stuff.
Yeah, you could do that. Again, we'll take the A86 as an example. It's an easy example. Jim and I both own. He has many more than I do. But that was a car that was attainable for a young guy to buy brand new. And now look at the things. Buying a car brand new, the GR86 after dealer markups, which they're still doing, is $35,000, $36,000, almost $40,000.
Well, didn't that happen to that Nissan whatever too? The new Z car. It was supposed to be affordable car.
Yeah.
And for the masses, enjoy the very analog, retro, cheap, affordable aspect. Yeah, I think you're right, Brian. I think that's a very big market miss on the electric vehicle that probably would make it more popular to the masses and make a lot more of us more interested in it.
Yeah, I think all these manufacturers just keep shooting for, we need to bring the most luxurious consumer experience. We need to elevate these people. And you can see it too because like the EX90 is only available in Plus or Ultra or Ultimate, I believe. And it just kind of makes you think that, well, there's no base. They don't even care like about people that want to be in the EX90 that don't have that kind of money. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the problem is, so that I think the issue too is that, people want a more base vehicle. And right now with the car market as it is, people are just opting to buy used. I think, when you see the influx of used car sales in the past year, especially since COVID, you see used car sales going through the roof compared to new car volume. Last week on the bonus show, I talked about how the GR86, despite it being a somewhat expensive car still, is selling pretty well. But compare that to even the secondhand, small compact sports car market, and it's going to have it beat out.
A half-ton truck now costs at least $50,000. It's ridiculous. Easily. And I think that, part of it's tough because part of it you have government regulation that says your car now has to have X, Y, and Z mandated by law, and X, Y, and Z cost money.
EPA stuff and
it's
just too much.
It costs money to do those things. It's stuff to develop. It's stuff to install. It's stuff to maintain. And the manufacturer is not going to just eat that cost. Of course not. They're going to pass that down to the consumer. So the more regulation you have in cars, okay, it's got to have this. Okay, now it's got to have blind spot monitors. Okay, now they have to have this type of
takes away from the car too.
It takes away from the car and it makes them more expensive. And I think part of that, I think less of it, to the degree we're seeing it, is not so much manufacturers always missing the mark because they want to chase sales. I think part of it is verifiably government regulation that just says you have to have all this junk in cars now.
All the rules have made it and blasé as all can be. It's not really the company so much.
Yeah.
Well, it sounded like you were saying with that EX30 and the EX90, they were trying to kind of bring an electric car with more of a driver experience instead of that appliance feel to it too, though. That's what I was taking from what you were saying as well, which got to give, if that's what's happening, got to give Volvo some credit on that.
I really think my favorite full electric car by them so far is still the XC40.
Okay, how's that one different?
I think that I like that one so much because it doesn't have the NFC cards like the Teslas and the new ones. It feels a lot like just the gas version of the XC40, except that it's not. It's electric. It's 420 horsepower. It's fast, but you can just hop in it and go. You don't have to you don't have to set all this stuff up. It feels like a simpler electric car. It still has an LCD gauge cluster, but at least it's in front of you and not a tablet screen.
Yeah.
Not an iPad in front of you.
It does have the tablet screen, but you really don't have to look at the tab screen that much unless you're just trying to change the temperature or play with the radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're departing from good cars like that. It does make me happy to know, hearing it from someone who's a bit of a Volvo insider, that Volvo still has some of that in their cars, that we may not think about. I just hope that manufacturers in the long run do bring things to being simple. Now, what would it take to bring them to make things simple? I think it takes consumer demand, and enough consumer demand. And unfortunately, when you look at things, myself, you, Brian, Jim, none of us are sort of the guys who buy these cars. Admittedly, we're part of the problem because we're not out there buying them new because we don't like them, for one. But it's, we always end up buying these old cars, and it's tough to complain when you're always the secondhand buyer because the manufacturer doesn't make any money off of us. They have no incentive to do that. I think people who do buy new cars regularly, they're not, somehow mentally damaged like the rest of us who just buy constant old cars and then spend more money fixing them than actually buying a nice new car.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine if you could see a all-electric vehicle that's like a base all-wheel drive, simple driver experience. It's got maybe it's got roll-up windows. Maybe it has a stiffer suspension, and that's all it has. And it's just like a really cheap sports car. But you know what? It's electric. It gets someone in a new chassis. It's like a GT86, but it's basic.
Yeah, I like it. Now, all right, Brian, we'll let you go here in a little bit, but one last question for you before we wrap things up here on the bonus edition of the show. The new EX30 and the EX90, how do they rank against my 240? Do they even come close to it?
I will say the styling is fantastic. Everyone.
You're saying the 240 styling isn't?
Everyone at the shop loves the taillights and the styling on the new cars.
But is it a 240?
I got some pictures. I got to send it your way.
He's saying it's not a 240. Oh man, yeah.
There's always going to be a place in my heart for a 240.
I think so. Oh man. Well, hey Brian, thank you so much for joining us here on the bonus edition of the show. Now, of course, I hope you listening to this show enjoyed this kind of in-depth look into the EV market, but also some technical stuff with Brian. This is again why, Brian, I love having you on so much. And by the way, we didn't have any of this planned. We just sort of where were we at? 37 some minutes?
Just came up with this.
It's all right, Brian. Thanks for making me feel very uneducated and not that intelligent once again. I think it's a talent, if not a skill, you have with anything on these topics with me, because I'm like
innate talent. He's just born with that ability.
It's like
you better be teaching your son how to do this too.
I need
by
to
the
start
way.
coming in here with a shirt that just says "Some College." It's like, what are you doing, Some College?
Oh man. Well, hey, thanks for listening to the show. Remember, you can catch the radio show as well. Several great radio stations across Southern Colorado, as well as on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, wherever fine shows and mine are downloaded. And I'll talk to you next week, probably when, Jim, what do you think? Another horrible project car shows up?
Yes. There's probably one on its way right now that I've forgotten about.
All right. We'll see you then.